So recently on the channel, I have, of course, been talking a lot about Nintendo's latest financial report briefing that just took place because I always find these interesting. Not necessarily because of the fact that I care about the latest hardware sales or software sales updates. I mean, they're cool. I used to talk about them a lot, but my interest has kind of weaned a bit in that. I'm more so focused on the future. And when you talk about the future of Nintendo, it's definitely looking a bit interesting. You have, of course, the fact that we don't know any about Nintendo Switch games beyond July. Of course, you have the Nintendo Switch 2 looming on the horizon, and President Furukawa actually dropped some morsels of information during this financial report. But what I was really looking forward to was the Q&A stuff, because not only do people get to ask questions, but Nintendo themselves usually flesh things out a bit more. And we actually just learned a whole bunch of new things about the Nintendo Switch 2 because of this. So I'm really excited to talk about it with you guys today and share my thoughts on it. If you are new to the channel, make sure you hit that subscribe button. But let's just hop straight into this, because I don't really want to talk about that manufacturing leak. I saw some people talking about it, the potential specs of the system and all this stuff. Like, yeah, maybe, you know, but I would rather wait a little bit closer to the kind of unveiling of the system, because I don't necessarily think the specs of it are going to tell the whole story. But the first thing that we learned about in the Q&A portion of this investors meeting was that Nintendo Switch Online will be, or for the Nintendo Switch 2, will be using the Nintendo accounts. Now, I'm starting off with the thing that's probably the least interesting in this, because I feel like most people were under the impression that this was going to be the case. Nintendo obviously built Nintendo Switch Online, or the Nintendo Online accounts, with the premise of using it on future systems. Like, I can't imagine them coming out with the next system and just being like, oh, we got to start all these retro games that we added. Yeah, we got to start from square one. Sorry, guys. Like, no, it's going to be a continuation. But the one thing I'm hoping for with the next generation console is that there is going to be new consoles added to it. I almost feel like we're a little bit tapped out as far as what games Nintendo is going to put on this service for whatever reason, because there's so many classic games that they can choose from, but it seems like some of them are just off limits. A lot of Super Nintendo RPGs, a lot of Sega Genesis games. Like, it just seems a bit strange how the games are sort of dictated, and I hope in the future that maybe there's a bit of a better roadmap for when the games are going to be released, instead of just randomly dropping them on Twitter that it's coming out either at that point in time or near in the future when these games are going to be available to play. But Nintendo accounts are transferring over, which kind of does potentially get people excited about backwards compatibility. Like I said in my most recent video, I'm definitely more leaning towards that there will be backwards compatibility. But remember, the Nintendo account isn't necessarily the stuff you've bought previously on the Switch. It's more so about the online stuff, you know, the plan that you buy and all of that sort of stuff. So just keep that in mind, just in case for whatever reason we don't get backwards compatibility. But we did learn something that once again could lead a little bit towards the backwards compatibility situation when it comes to the physical medium, because a lot of people are worried right now about the all digital future of gaming. Companies are making platforms that don't have physical disc drives. There's obviously a very strong push towards this in the future. And once again, people were wondering, you know, is Nintendo going to follow suit, or are they going to do their own thing? Will there be physical media on the Nintendo Switch successor? And we learned about that. President Furukawa said the following: Our basic policy is not to simply increase the ratio of digital sales, but to maximize sales of game software, including sales of packaged software, and this policy will remain unchanged in the future. Under these circumstances, we need to increase convenience for both customers who play the packaged version of software and customers who play the downloaded version, and we hope to continue to make further improvements and innovations in the future. So right then and there, we're confirming physical media for the Nintendo Switch successor. Now, I wasn't of the mindset that this was going to be an all-digital system. I think that they might still make a digital version that doesn't take any sort of physical media. Maybe not at the start of the system, but maybe later on, depending on how long it lasts. But it's good to see that physical media will be continued on the Nintendo Switch successor. And of course, you have to kind of wonder the main question about this. is it going to be the same physical media that we have on the current Nintendo Switch? Because I just can't imagine them using those exact same cartridges because of the fact that, you're kind of limited on storage capability. There are a lot of games on the Switch now where you have to download additional stuff, where you have to, not everything is on the cartridge, especially third-party games. All of these games are getting bigger and bigger in the future anyways. Nintendo themselves actually says in this thing that their games are going to get bigger and that there could be, some sort of slowdown when it comes to the production of games as development costs continue to rise. So I can't imagine them using the same thing, but if they don't use the same thing, how are they going to have backwards compatibility with physical media on the Nintendo Switch 2? They obviously know the answer to this, but without telling us, really all we can do is sort of sit back and speculate about this. But at least we do know that there is physical media with the Nintendo Switch 2. I guess it's going to have to be cartridge based. Like, you can't really do like a UMD or, something like that. I don't know. It's Nintendo's problem to figure out, not mine. And that's probably a good thing, because I would just be like, put it on a micro SD card and ship it out the door. And then, of course, we have to conclude this video with the final thing that we learned about this system, because there was some very interesting stuff that we talked about recently, and by we, I mean I talked about recently, when it came to the Nintendo Switch 2 situation. And that was President Furukawa essentially calling it a Switch successor. Well, something didn't sit right with Furukawa, or maybe somebody asked a question about this, because Furukawa actually went on to explain like why he said that and what it actually means. And I find this to be rather eye-opening. So when it comes to this, President Furukawa, of course, called it the Switch successor, basically saying that, when you go back and look at other systems, how things have been done. When the Wii U was announced, it was announced as a Wii successor, but when they announced the Switch, it was a new concept. So there obviously is, the devil's in the details with this. Obviously, when wording gets a little bit too wordy, you kind of can see through the veil with this. But President Furukawa shed some light on it and basically said that when they're describing the new hardware as a successor, it was just the best way to describe things. And I think still calling it a successor kind of says a lot about this system. Like I talked about before, when it comes to this system, I feel like everyone just wants a stronger Switch with, like, I don't know, maybe better online and like better features and stuff like that. But the basic concept of the system is, I think, where people want it to be. I find it very convenient to be able to play this system as a home console or a hybrid. I think it works in Nintendo's favor. And when you see what other companies are doing, all these, handheld mini PCs that have an HDMI out, the PlayStation Portal, PlayStation Play Anywhere, Xbox Play Anywhere stuff, like this obviously is a large market. And I feel like Nintendo, kind of being the leader of this market, they should continue it. There's always that doubt, though, because Nintendo is just a wild and crazy company. You never know what they're going to do with their next platform until you actually see it. And then the question is, well, when are we actually going to see it? There is some information going on out there that basically says that we're not going to see this system until after April of 2025, based on some kind of shoddy translation. I don't necessarily think that that is what was being said in it, but a lot of websites are starting to run with it. But remember, I'm the bad guy because I made a fictitious tweet. That is what the article said, but I'm not harping on it or anything like that. But a lot of these websites are running with it, and I just don't think that that's actually what is happening. I think that, I don't think that that's a confirmation of anything like that. I still think that it could come out in the early portion of 2025, maybe around March again. Some people are thinking that's going to be a holiday release because of this information. I don't really see it that way. I just think it's, just a little bit of misinformation, a bad translation. But, when people are clicking on it, you got to keep it up. You got to make that money. But those are some things we learned about the Nintendo Switch 2. We learned about accounts transferring over from Nintendo Switch Online. We learned about the fact that there's going to be physical media. We learned that Furukawa is kind of doubling down on that successor part, but we do have some questions when it comes to things, because we also kind of learned that, these games are going to take potentially longer to develop. How will Nintendo be able to handle that? And of course, there is that one question of the shift to 4K gaming. Will Nintendo be able to do something like that right out of the box? Will it be a little bit of a struggle? I don't think it'll be nearly as big as something like, the Wii to the Wii U, but I do think there could be a little bit of hesitation going into this new graphical sphere and stuff like that. But time will tell with it. So let me know in the comments section down below what you think of all of this. Are you surprised that your account is going to transfer over? Because you shouldn't be surprised. Are you surprised that there's physical media on it? It wasn't a foregone conclusion. My phone is ringing right now, completely messing up this video. And as always, guys, thank you for watching this video, and I'll catch you guys on the next one. Later.